Hey guys, Chester Westerford here. Last night I got out to see the new Ghostbusters sequel, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'd been really looking forward to this movie since it was announced and followed it with eager anticipation all through its long and several times delayed history. So, was it worth the wait? I think it was. This movie could have gone one of three ways. It could have been an absolute mess of nostalgia bait with a plot that can in no way stand on its own, a completely new take on the franchise with no sentimental connections to the original, or a blend of nostalgic fun with plenty of nods to the past but wrapped in a good story featuring new, enjoyable characters. Personally, I think it achieved the latter. I was a bit worried going in that it was going to be more the first option when I heard that Gozer was going to be the main villain. I have to admit, I was kind of hoping for something new and different, but after seeing the new film with the story they were trying to tell, I realized that having Gozer as the main villain was the best option for this. I don't want to go into it too much as I want to keep this review spoiler free, but this is a story about family legacy, so the new team having to finish what the original team started was perfect. And as well as having a good story, the new cast is just brilliant as well. Especially Paul Rudd and McKenna Grace, two of my favorite actors in the industry right now. And newcomer, at least newcomer to me, maybe he's been around for a while. I've never heard of him, but I can't find too much info online, so I assume he's new. Logan Kim also appears to be a great new star. He plays a type of tropey character, the nerdy friend, which I usually find to be tired and annoying, but here it wasn't. Gives it kind of a fresh and new spin, which makes it feel, well, new and fresh. Those were the standout characters for me, and were really what made the film. That's not a slight against the other actors, though. The whole main cast, consisting of Finn Wolfhard, Carrie Coon, and Celeste O'Connor, also did a great job bringing their characters to life. They just maybe weren't given as much to do, so maybe not quite as interesting for that reason. But yeah, that's the new cast. Of course, in addition to this new cast, we also feature, in smaller roles, almost all of the original main cast from the first two films, excluding, of course, Harold Ramis, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, and Rick Moranis, who is mostly retired from acting. And let me just say, it was great seeing the original cast back, and it felt like as if they never left. You'd think time would maybe have changed them in ways that caused them to play the characters slightly differently, but man, do they fall right back into their characters perfectly. Maybe it's a testament to how much of themselves they put into the original characters, and maybe that's one reason the original films work so well, but every one of them, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Annie Potts, Sigourney Weaver, they just felt so much like their characters still, and helps that the writing got them down so perfectly as well. And even though Harold Ramis is not in it, I don't want to give too much away, but there are plenty of great plot elements which serve as a very touching tribute to him and his character. Of course, there was also, I guess, technically a couple of recasts of returning characters as well. We see a bit of an Egon in the beginning with a different actor standing in, but his face is never shown and it's very brief, so I don't have much to say about that, and it worked fine. And of course, we have Olivia Wilde replacing this woman. I don't know how to pronounce that name, so I'm not even going to try, as Gozer the Gozerian. She did a good job, and can I just say her costume and makeup was amazing? The original design of Gozer in the first Ghostbusters never quite worked for me. I could never quite tell what it was supposed to look like, but in my opinion, the improvements in makeup and effects, combined with a better budget, enabled them to make a vast improvement on the character design here. And speaking of character design, I was also really impressed with the Terror Dogs. I'm presuming they were CGI the whole time. If it's not, maybe somebody could correct me, but I couldn't help noticing that in a couple of scenes, the movement and texture had just this hint of that kind of feel you get from animatronic puppets, such as the originals were. Just a little thing that's unnecessary, but a nice little touch. I'm not really going to say much about the plot, even though there's so much I could say, because like I said, I want to keep this spoiler free. But it is just a really great story. I think it's the kind of story that kids who grew up watching Ghostbusters would have fantasized about going through. It's not a perfect movie. There are a few things in the plot that are a bit convenient, somewhat tropey, and one thing that kind of doesn't make any sense, but it's a very minor thing. And there are a few elements I was hoping would come into this movie, like hoping the opening titles would be done as the same as the first two. It was done similarly, but not exactly the same, and I could see why they didn't. It wouldn't have worked with the tone they needed. Again, I was hoping at least the end credits would be the same with the actors' names over the characters, but that's a very minor thing. Uh, that was, after all, the done in the style of the time in the 80s, and what we got here was the style of this time period. I just think keeping it the same would have been a bit of nice extra connective tissue to the originals, but maybe I'm just being silly. Also, I have to admit, it would have nice to have seen Slimer in this film. As far as we know, he's still out there, and he was a huge part of the franchise, being in all the previous movies and even the animated series. Instead, we got kind of a Slimer-esque Ghost and Muncher, and even that, while at first being a bit disappointing, had a pretty neat payoff story-wise, so yeah. Also, I guess maybe it wouldn't have made that much sense to have Slimer here, as he's probably still in New York causing trouble, and this takes place in, I believe it was Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain.
What we did get, however, was the mini Stay Puffed Marshmallow Men. As fun as they were, I do wish there had been a better story reason for their inclusion. There really wasn't any at all. I assume Gozer conjured them up. Why she would have done so, I don't know, as the only reason the giant one happened was because of Ray. Doesn't matter though, it was still fun to have them. Oh, I liked the music callbacks in the soundtrack to the original soundtrack. And of course, you can't have a Ghostbusters movie without the theme song playing over the end credits. I'm glad they included that. Speaking of which, I thought it was cool that McKenna Grace's new song also got to play over the end credits afterwards. It's a good song, and it must have been exciting for her. Speaking of the end credits, if you do see this movie, there are two end credits scene. One is just a fun bit of nostalgia. The other, possibly setting it up for more films or even a series in the future. I certainly hope so. I would love to see more sequels in this vein. I'd love to see the same new characters back, but from certain things I've heard that Dan Aykroyd has said, looks like we might get different takes on the franchise in the future. I think it would be kind of disappointing if we don't get to see these characters again, but I'm sure whatever else they come up with will also be good. So yeah, it's not a perfect movie, but still really fun, and I'd highly recommend it for those who have seen the first two movies. Uh, I'd say it was actually better than the first two movies. Maybe the best out of the three, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, for ranking, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. So what did you guys think? Are you planning to see the movie? Or if you've already seen it, what did you think? Did you like it? Would you like to see more Ghostbusters in the future? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.